you know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Come on, then. I'll bite your legs off.
I can take it.
Great power comes great responsibility. We have a fault. Get to the chopper! And leave. Does the flesh move? I am the father.
And welcome back to the 55th episode of the Monster Movie Stompdown. Of course, you got Sludge here, and we're missing Mark, and we'll explain why in a moment. But first, our brother from Texas.
I'm here in Thawed Out, Texas. It's been a month, so we're thawed out from that big freeze we had last month.
Good. Glad you guys are thawed out. It's comfortable here in Tennessee now. Finally comfortable.
Yeah, no, it was perfect today. It was like 80 with like 20% humidity. It was like perfect. I'm like, man, I could sit out here all day.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think today was like high 60s here in East Tennessee, which for me is like that low 70s, high 60s with the way the humidity works here. It's perfect. And that's what it is. It's like I could just stay on my porch all day. Like I don't need to go anywhere else. So, but yeah, so we are missing Mark today because his household got hit with COVID. Now Marcus tested negative, which is good. But my sister, her fiance, and the kiddos, they all did test positive. Kiddos are doing a lot better already. Haley's feeling, my sister is, and then her fiance is feeling pretty rough, but they are all starting to do better. But because of that, Mark is, self-quarantining. So he is not here with us tonight, unfortunately. I think it was just an excuse, honestly, Ruben, so he didn't have to watch a silent film. I think that's what it was.
Yeah. There you go. That's what it was. So you went and licked the doorknob somewhere trying to get it, and he gave it to, and he didn't get it. He gave it to everybody else.
Yeah. Dang Mark. So, but yes, this episode we're continuing on. Of course, we'll be doing this for a little while, going Godzilla movie to a Universal monster movie, and this time we went back to the original of the Universal Monster Classics with the Phantom of the Opera from 1925. Now, Ruben, have you seen this one? I know you've said you've seen the 55 one with Claude, right?
Yes.
But
I've seen the 55, and this one I've only seen once, and it was when I was a teenager. That's how long it's been.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's been a long time because the Claude Rains is on. That's what you see on all the DVDs and all that. My Blu-ray set that I have, it's the Claude Rains. It doesn't have this one, I assume, because it's silent.
Yeah.
Really, truthfully, this was a almost new experience for me.
Oh, man.
Also, I did not realize how many versions were out there.
Oh,
this was
so
totally
many.
different than the version. Yeah, this was totally different from the version I saw on VHS or whatever. I don't even remember what I saw it on. I think it was VHS back in the day because it fell into public domain, so it was everywhere.
Yeah.
You could pick it up at a well, not back then. It wasn't a Walmart, maybe a Kmart or whatever. You could pick up a public domain version of it.
Yeah, but it was on
VHS.
all those, especially when DVD came, all those big packs of like 50 classic horror movies or whatever,
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah. Something like that.
There's actually one cool one, because we're talking about, of course, this movie being from 1925, almost everything from back then is public domain, but Universal legally worked to get the rights back to this and get it out of public domain because they needed to, because they were losing all kinds of money because everybody had it and released it. But there was one cool version, because the public domain version, most of the time when you're watching this film, if you find it on YouTube or a public domain copy, like Ruben's talking about, it's only 93 minutes. The actual film is 107 minutes long. So hunting down the restored version is definitely the recommendation from us here to Sludgecast and anybody who's a fan of this movie. You want to get it, especially the Kodak version, right, Ruben? We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, it's Eastman. They said I always get Eastman, George Eastman House, which is Eastman Kodak.
Well, okay, Eastman actually does two of them, so you want to make sure you get the original. And I think about it because Eastman House does have a 93-minute print of this, but they did do the full restoration, and they actually get colorized preservation on it as well. Which is
they did
awesome. Like for the colorized version of this movie, and we'll jump into the movie synopsis here real quick in just a second. But the colorized version of the movie is that they really the hues of the scene as far because most of it, I mean, it's still black and white, but like some scenes it's more blue tinted, some more red tinted, in very key aspects. Green, but the big shining moment is the masquerade scene, in which we'll go into the synopsis in a minute. When it goes
that
to
was
full
to
on
me
color.
Oh man, when we get to it, that was like I'm like whoa.
Oh,
you know, that was like what in the heck am I seeing?
Oh, it was absolutely epic. So let's jump into the movie real quick and about what this thing's about. So now, Phantom of the Opera, of course, tells the tale of the Phantom of the Opera, who goes by the name of Eric. He is the Phantom of a opera house in Paris, and at this opera house, of course, you've got all kinds of singers. This opera house is actually being bought at the very beginning of the movie. It's being sold by the original owners, and it has been bought by new owners. And of course, they let them know at the beginning, hey, beware the Phantom, the one who sits in house box 5. And the Phantom, of course, played by the great and truly amazing Lon Chaney, one of the greatest actors of all time, takes a major liking and falls in love with one of the singers of the opera house named Christine Daae, who's played by the great Mary Philbin. She was in a very controversial movie back in the day, by the way, called Merry-Go-Round with Norman Carey, who's also in this movie. He plays Raoul. Just a little side note there. But so he falls in love with Christine Daae, and she's not the main singer of the opera house. The main singer is a singer named Carlotta, who's seen very shortly on film here, but the Phantom doesn't like her and pretty much says, if you don't stop singing and let Christine start singing these, take the lead, then you're going to be fall ill, or you're going to fall curse of the Phantom. And so Christine starts to taking these leads, and the Phantom pretty much is expressing his love to Christine throughout the movie. And, just says all you have to do is when he calls himself a spirit, because he hides himself for the first little bit of the film. But when he reveals himself for her to come to him, all because he's in love with Christine. So he comes for Christine one night, and when he finally comes for Christine, he takes her down because he lives in the catacombs, which is just a massive, it's huge. The amount of rooms and tunnels, and there's even a lake underneath the Paris house is just beautiful.
Yeah, I was like, man, I'd like to live there. When I was watching the movie, I said, man, that's a cool place to live.
Oh yeah, I would totally live down there. Totally, it's awesome looking. So he takes her down, and the one thing he tells her that she can't do is remove his mask, because he wears a mask the entire time. And the first step of betrayal happens when she removes his mask as he's playing at the organ that he's got down there. And it's, of course, one of the most classic, iconic scenes in movie history. If you've never seen this movie, I guarantee you have at least seen some, even if it was in Gremlins 2, you've at least seen the shot of the Phantom having his mask removed. I mean, it's truly
a classic scene. Yeah.
It is. I mean, back then when this came out in 1925, and actually came out like twice, like in September and then November, depending on which side of the states you were on. They reported that people were passing out in the theater, being scared from that scene itself. It's just so iconic. And so she removes his mask, and he sends her back to up top and says that you can leave because of how ugly he is. And but she can't talk to her former lover, who is Raoul in the movie. And Raoul knows something's up, and he believes it's the Phantom. But when she comes back, she pretty much lets him know that the Phantom has taken her, and Raoul needs to save her from him. And then comes the masquerade scene that we'll dive deep into here in a few moments. At a masquerade party, because Christine has returned. They do a masquerade, and of course she meets up with Raoul, and the Phantom shows up as honestly, it's the Mask of the Red Death is what he shows up as. Shows up and sees them together, and realizes that they are actually plotting her escape. She's going to sing the next day for her final performance, and then they are going to run off together to England. But the Phantom won't let him. And after she sings, he kidnaps her and takes her back down to his, we'll just call it a dungeon, where he lives. It doesn't even look like a dungeon. It looks immaculate. It's awesome. But his lair underneath the opera house. And then it's all up to Raul to save her. Actually, Raul, and then a character played by Arthur Edmund Carew called Ledoux. He's kind of there figuring out what's going on with the Phantom. At first, you kind of think maybe Ledoux works for the Phantom, but he really doesn't. And so they go down to try and rescue Christine. While this is happening, a mob is forming up on the streets of Paris because the Phantom has killed somebody, actually hung them in what is a quite frightening sequence in the movie. You see their body just hanging as a shadow. It was just truly awesome sequence. But they find out where the Phantom lives. So as Raul and Ledoux are trying to save Christine, the mob is growing and coming after the Phantom, and they arrive at the Phantom house. And the Phantom ends up luring Raul and Ledoux into an awesome torture chamber, which was supposed to be the torture chamber that he was tortured in for many years. And he ends up, talking to Christine, and Christine says, "Please, I'll do anything. Just save them. And after what is an amazing back and forth sequence between the Phantom and Christine in regards to saving Raul and Ledoux, he does finally save their lives or spare their lives, and then he takes off with Christine, running out of the Phantom or the Opera House because the crowd, the mob, is coming after him, pitchforks and torches and everything. So they steal the coach that was originally going to be for Christine and Raul to escape in, and the Phantom, Eric, he takes off with her. She escapes out of it, falls into the street, and he goes to go get her, but the mob almost catches up with him, so he takes off running down a side wall by like a bridge by the river, and at that point they come running down, and that is when the Phantom meets his climactic end, and what's a pretty brutal ending because they beat him to death and then throw his body into the river. Man, I'm gonna go deep into this movie, Ruben, because there's so much for this film. One, got to talk about Lon Chaney. Lon Chaney, of course, a lot of people who may not know Lon Chaney because he is an older actor, but I mean, he's been in so many classics. He was the Hunchback in Notre Dame. Yep. He was in Flesh and Blood. Yep. He's in the Phantom of the Opera. He's in The Monster. Let's see, he's in The Unknown with Joan Crawford. London After Midnight. I'm trying to think of a couple other ones I can think of top of my head that he's just phenomenal in. Just a great actor, phenomenal actor. One of the things that he was most famous for back then was he was the guy who did his own special effects. So if you go back and watch, he plays Quasimodo in the 1923 original Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it just looks it looks like he's in a suit almost. I mean, the special effects are superb in that movie, and it's all Lon Chaney. He does it all himself. And again, he does that here in Phantom of the Opera. And actually, Phantom of the Opera, most of it, because it doesn't even look like it, it's mostly paints. It looks like he's got like prosthetic stuff added to make his eyebrows bigger and things like that. But no, it's mostly paints. He knew how to work paints extremely well to make himself look so horrifying. But he did add some, I think, clay to his nose to make it pointier. But then he used these hook wires to pull his nose up. And then he used like some fake wooden false teeth with some wires to give the whole rest of the face thing that he's got. He's truly terrifying looking. But he actually got injured making this movie because the wires, they said that he was constantly having nosebleeds because the wires were pulling up his nose would just dig into his flesh and just his nose was
digging
bleed
into him. Yeah.
So I mean, the dude was just dedicated. Now, people may not know Lon Chaney, but you definitely know his son who followed suit just like Dad did. Lon Chaney Jr., of course, most notably known as being the Wolfman with the Universal Monster Classics. He was the Wolfman. But his father was just one of, arguably one of the greatest actors of all time. He actually did one of his later films that Lon Chaney did, I think was absolutely phenomenal. It's the movie, I can't think of it now. He portrays James Cagney, Man of a Thousand Faces. Unbelievable movie. I mean, that's Criterion Collection. I mean, just this dude was just a superb actor. So good so that even though, and maybe a lot of people don't know this, but Lon Chaney Jr., his son, his actual name is not Lon. He changed his name to match his dad's. His name's actually Crichton or something like that. So, I mean, he wanted to follow suit because his dad was just so phenomenal of an actor. I mean, he's, again, man, movies like London After Midnight and the Family Opera, Hunchback of Notre Dame. I mean, his work is superb. I don't think they could have picked a better person for the role. And that's where Carl Laemmle, is that how you pronounce it, Ruben? Laemmle?
That's how I would pronounce it.
Yeah, something like that. Well, Carl,
Yeah.
who produced this movie and actually financed the film, he was actually in France in like 1910 or something like that, and met up with the guy who wrote the actual book for Phantom of the Opera. What was his name? Leroux. It's like, gosh, it's on the cover of the movie, and I can't even think about it during it. Gaston Leroux. And he met him, and from what it's been told is Laemmle got a copy of Leroux's book, his 1910 novel, Phantom of the Opera, and Laemmle fell in love with it, bought the rights, did the movie. Now, Carl Laemmle, most people might not know because he worked during the silent era. I think his last film was from like 1935 or 1934, something like that. But
he died in what, 39? That's what I'm looking at here.
Yeah,
matter of fact, hold on. Just
I mean, he worked almost to the end of his career.
Yeah.
But
But it says here September 24th, 1939.
Yeah,
when he died.
Yeah. So I mean, and he worked on The Hunchback of Notre Dame with Lon Chaney. He worked obviously on this one. He worked on The Unknown. I mean, he worked on a ton of movies. I don't know anybody who worked on movies as much as this man. He's credited for over 930 films that he's a producer of.
Wow.
So I mean, that's a workhorse. I mean, Carl worked his tail off. 900. I don't know anybody else. 900. It's like 930 something, 940 something films that he's credited as a producer for. That's one heck of a streak, if you ask me. I don't know anyone that comes even close to that. So Carl put it on. Of course, Universal bought the rights, and then they brought in Lon Chaney, brought in Norman Carey. Norman Carey was great too as Raoul in this. Norman Carey actually is also in The Hunchback of Notre Dame with Lon Chaney, and of course he was also in The Unknown with Lon Chaney again, and the great Joan Crawford. That was one of her first films. Joan Crawford is a legend when it comes to. She may be like the first legendary female actor in my opinion. I don't know anybody that tops Joan Crawford. She was just a truly a legend. Actually, my favorite movie of hers is probably one of the more B film movies that she did. It was called Trog. I remember watching it with my great grandmother. Fell in love with it. But anyways, back to the Phantom. Excuse me.
Before you go forward, it's Lem Lee, according to him. In an interview, he said that's how you say it. Lem Lee. Carl Lem Lee.
Wow, we've been butchering that name.
Yeah, it's French. So it said, asked how to pronounce his name. So obviously, like others, we had trouble too. He said his name means little lamb and is pronounced as if it were spelled Lem Lee. Lem Lee.
Okay. Yeah. I'll never say his name wrong again. So
yeah,
which is good. But so I mean, this movie did good. I don't know what type of a budget this film had, to be honest with you guys. Normally I try to have all this information. I do know that it did like $2 million in box office sales. But I don't know what the budget in this movie was. I couldn't imagine being much. I mean, at the time. But I mean, the sets on this movie is just absolutely phenomenal. Ruben, I'm gonna let you run with it for a minute, man. I mean, because when I start digging into why I like this movie, I'm gonna be digging in because this is Sludge's.
Well, I was gonna suggest that. So you know what? Let me go. I'll be a little bit shorter, and then I'll let you go, man, and you can go the rest of the time. I'm just gonna say this is the first time really I saw the whole movie. As Sludge mentioned before, all the versions I've seen before were shorter and VHS. And the one time I saw it, it was very bad quality. I wouldn't doubt it if it was one of those good time videos that you would buy at a 5 and dime store, that you just see, or where it was like 5 horror movies on one super long SLP VHS back in the days. If you guys remember
I miss those.
Yeah. So you'd get those, and it was just, the longer you stretch out that tape, the worse video quality you'd get, So having seen this really for the first time, the way it was pretty much, the closest you're going to get to the way it was meant to be seen.
Right. Yeah.
Is the restored version with the colors. And you know what really gets me is I really love to know what that guy in the very beginning with the lantern holder
Yes.
was saying. You know, I'm like, man, I wonder what he's saying. Is he giving a background on Eric? Is he just talking about the theater? Is he talking about the phantom and the haunting? The so-called haunting of what is he saying? As a matter of fact, the first few minutes of the film, I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Is there something wrong here? Do I need to turn
Right.
do I need to turn something on? I'm like sitting there, and then I said, no, this is a silent movie. I should get a screen with the words. You know, and then of course the movie started. But this movie is a work of art more than if somebody asked me, did you like that movie? I said, I like that work of art because that's what it was.
I absolutely agree.
And of course, yeah. I mean, it was a work of art. And with silent movies, you had to do it that way. With silent movies, the expressions had to show emotion. You just couldn't. Nowadays, you know, you can show emotion without showing it on your face by sound. Or but with this you had to I mean, you saw the emotion. A lot of times you didn't even know what they were about to say because the words come after, but you had an idea just from the face.
Yeah, you could tell what was going on without hearing anything.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. From the makeup to the soundtrack of this thing, which is phenomenal.
Oh,
I mean, it's just great. Yeah, if you're a fan of classical music, man, you're gonna love this soundtrack because that too conveys emotion. That too conveys what's going on the screen for you. It's not just the faces. It's not just the cards. I call them cards with the words on them. I know there's an official term, but it escapes me right now. But to me, that's what makes it a work of art. And seeing that iconic scene where she pulls the mask off, and really that's basically, and maybe I'm mistaken here, but I've seen it twice since we're recording. I can't remember if he takes off that mask again at any time. You correct me if I'm wrong. Is it just when he's playing? Does he take it off in another scene?
He does take it off later on when he brings her back down.
The second time, right? The second time when she kidnapped. Yeah, okay. I was trying to remember whether he took off the mask then or not.
Yeah, but he takes it
90% of the movie. Yeah, for 90% of the movie, he's either a shadow, or he's wearing his mask.
Mm-hmm.
For 90% of the movie, which is, that's another thing I loved about the movie. The use of shadows in this movie was great.
Oh, it's so good.
It gave you a sense. Yeah. It gave you the sense of anxious. It made you anxious because you saw the shadows and they really, you knew they worked with shadows. Cause I mean, I noticed these little things. I said they would work the shadow, but that's not how the lighting was. The shadows were intended to be there. As part of the director's vision, and it was great. I mean, I really liked this movie a lot. Of course, that iconic shot when she pulls off the mask is unforgettable. But my favorite part is when he appears and you get Technicolor, and he's in red, and he's the red mask of death or whatever you want. Yeah. And I'm like, man, look at that, because you see hues throughout the movie, but that scene, if I read it correct, was actually redone in Technicolor.
Mm-hmm.
They colored it in, and so you had all kinds of shades in that scene, which I thought was awesome, especially how he was dressed. I mean, that was just as terrifying as when she pulled his mask off, the way he was dressed. I'm like, man, that costume that he's wearing is just awesome. So there's not much I didn't like about this movie. The only thing I would say I would gig it on hey, you can't find the footage. You can't find the footage. Is I'd like to know what the lantern holder was saying at the beginning of the movie. I would have liked to seen more. I would like to heard or seen or read more of Eric's background, because all is he's a phantom. And very little.
You get
about
like
him.
One little card that tells you he's from Devil's Island and was considered criminally insane and expert in the black arts or something like that.
Right, exactly. And that's all you get. I'm like, okay, so what made him Okay, so he's there. He's haunting the opera house. But okay, so why? Why Christine? You know, I mean, he fell in love with her, but there's, I just would like a more background, and I don't really gig it for that because it's still a great movie. And another thing I'd like to add is, although he is the villain in this whole movie, I will cast some blame on Christine because the promise of fame, he promised her fame basically and said, you'll be a star if you come with me or if you accept my terms. And she accepted it. She accepted it to the point she told Raul, you need to go. I'm going to be a star. And so I'm like, her ambition got her into that mess more than anything else. More than, she could have told the Phantom, see you later. No, I'm not interested, but no, that draw in, I'm going to get deep like Justin McClane does on a lot of these movies. Her ambition is what got her into the situation she's in. The Phantom, yeah, he's the villain and he did some terrible things and he did kidnap her and all that. But I think her ambition is a villain in this too as well. And I thought the director made that pretty clear. I mean, if anybody watches the movie, you'll say, you know what, she's a pretty ambitious woman. And she had no qualms, about her being an understudy. She had no qualms about the star, getting hurt or anything like that. I mean, in my eyes, I could be wrong, but in my eyes, it was like she didn't care as long as she got what she needed. And then when she pulls off his mask, well, that's betrayal number one. He should have learned his lesson right there, if you ask me.
Oh yeah,
she pulled off. Yeah, the first thing he tells her not to do is the first thing she does. And I really love that scene where she, her and Raul plan and they go, let's go up there where nobody will see us. So they go up to the clock tower or tower of the opera house, the very roof they go to the roof of the opera house. And so they think they're alone. Well, there's the Phantom on top of that steeple, I guess is what it looks like to me, listening to their whole plot. And then, and again, he's like, man, she's stabbing me in the back again. I told her I'd make her a star and she's still doing this. So, there's just nothing I didn't like about that movie. I mean, if you don't like silent movies, you might have a hard time with this one, but after a while, I will say you forget you're watching a silent movie.
Oh, because I think.
Yeah. Yeah. The story draws you in. I mean, it's just so well done as far as, the atmospheres and, I mean, it's just great. The fact that they're doing Faust
at the very beginning,
that's open. At the very beginning, I'm like, man, that, that's perfect. I know it's based on the book. And this is, from what I've read, this movie is as close as you're going to get to what the book asked for.
Yeah, they only changed very little things in this movie as far as
very minor things. Very minor things. I think they just changed that one guy that happened to be a secret policeman. Well, in the book, he's actually a friend of his, an ex-friend. Yeah, Ledoux is an ex-friend of him. So there's not much. A matter of fact, that's it. And I had to reach for that as far as dislikes. I will say that if you're not into silent movies, you might not dig it, but I think that you'll be drawn in just like I was, because this was like me just watching it for the first time because it's been that long. I'm 54 years old, and the last time I saw it, I rented it on VHS probably. That's the last time I've seen it. So I was a teenager at the time. And so for me, it was like watching it the first time, and it drew me in right away. And I wanted to know more. That's why I'm gigging it, because I want to know so much more. I want that background.
And this movie's got a ton of background. I mean, you were mentioning it earlier. I mean, as far as what it's gone through. I mean, as far as preservation and releases, because there's even a whole full controversial type deal with the Eastman original print.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, it's been, and that's why I say I don't blame it, because it's been through a lot. This movie, the physical movie has been through a lot.
Oh yeah.
And so, I'm holding it against it, and I really shouldn't. And I gave it a very high rating. So that's really all I have to say. I'm going to give it over to the expert, this is his favorite Universal movie. So,
oh man,
his favorite movie of all.
Yeah,
that's what you said earlier.
This is it.
Is that correct? All right.
Yeah, when it comes to favorite genre movies, or this is my favorite movie of all time. If Sludge is trapped on a deserted island with one film and a VCR, it's Phantom of the Opera, and I will put that mug on loop for the rest of my days. I love this movie. Before I get into really why, I'll talk real quick about the things I liked about it. Absolutely everything. Like I love this movie. There's not even really anything I don't like, but there is one thing I do laugh about in this film, and I'll talk about it in a second. But I love the movie. I love the soundtrack. I mean, the original soundtrack, especially. Now, this one, of course, has been in public domain, and we were talking about. I mean, y'all listening, go look up. I'm sure that's on the maybe the Wikipedia page or IMDb has got to have the full history of this written down. It went through.
It is, and it's a long one.
Oh my gosh, it went through so much stuff. As far as changes with soundtrack, actually, I think in 1930, they actually did a bunch of reshoots in the 30s and got a bunch of the original cast back to do the movie again in sound. And the only person that didn't do their parts in sound was Lon Chaney, and I think they title carded like that or something like that. But that print, there was only one print of it, they thought, and because it made another bunch of money, another $1 million or something. But the where it was stored when they brought it out in 1930, the theater burned down and the film was lost.
Yeah.
And so, but a lot of the conspiracy type thing or theories is how Eastman got their copy, because a lot of what Eastman has came from what was supposedly that 1930s film
destroyed.
Yeah, the destroyed one.
That destroyed copy.
Oh yeah, so super interesting history in this film. One of the cool things about it is you can find copies of this movie, much like if you do your digging, you can find for Nosferatu, where you'll find the soundtracks redone for these films, a la a band called Typo Negative did this for several films. Of course, their soundtrack for Nosferatu that they redid was unreal, and Typo Negative is a goth metal band. But so there's multiple versions you're going to find with slight changes and just the constant change in history and restoration and finding pieces and other versions of the film, even down to they'd find the same scene but shot at a different angle somehow. It's crazy. So I mean, it's got an extremely interesting, one of the most interesting histories of any film as far as its life. I mean,
most definitely any of the ones that we've reviewed in our 55 episodes. This one has the most interesting history, in my opinion.
It does.
The most interesting history. I mean, I was like, wow. I started reading all this stuff. I'm like, wow. I mean, I kept stopping. I can't believe this. Oh man, look at. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh yeah, and if you want to throw even more on top of it, because I mean, just when you read about the film, you're going to want to watch this movie. Yes. Not just for even how amazing of a movie it is, just for the history of it, but even to throw it on top of it, the soundtrack for this film was actually originally done by Joseph Carl Braille. Now, Joseph Carl Braille, most of you guys are probably, I don't know who that is. He did the soundtrack. He composed the music for one of what in today's era is now considered one of the most controversial films of all time, Birth of a Nation, which is another silent film. And that's an amazing movie too, about the birth of, what happened in America. And it was controversial back then. It is controversial as all get out now. But so Joseph, who was an amazing composer, he did the soundtrack to this, and I think it's phenomenal. If you go and you listen to Andrew Lloyd Webber's version, the Broadway play, then of course the movie with Gerard Butler, you'll hear that it's not an exact by any means copy of Braille's soundtrack, what he composed, but there are moments, especially in the title sequence for Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera, when the Phantom in this movie, in the original movie, when he's down there playing on his organ after, there's the scene there before he takes his mask off again with Christine down there, he's playing a sequence on that organ, and Carl writes a piece to go over top of it. And if you listen back to that one, there are key notes and sequences in that piece that they used in the new 2004 movie with Gerard Butler, and it's just absolutely epic. I mean, so his soundtrack is just superb. I mean, as far as silent films, and I own a lot, I've watched a lot. The soundtrack for this movie is I think arguably the best soundtrack of any silent film. So I mean, I love it. I love Lon Chaney. The dude is one of my favorite actors. The fact that he just special effects, of course, is our big thing too here. We love special effects of every movie we talk about in every film we watch. Obviously, that's special effects is kind of the key point to everything we review. And for this man to be doing these special effects himself on himself is just superb. I love the storyline for this movie. The sets are just immaculate. I mean, yeah, Metropolis was awesome, had some cool props and cool sets because a lot of it was, paint backgrounds and things. I just can't think of a silent film that I've seen from Nosferatu, The Lost World, Metropolis, Birth of a Nation. Nothing had the set like just the size of grandeur that Family Opera has. Even the the tunnels in his place underneath. I mean, everything's immaculate, and it especially comes to life when you see the masquerade scene. That is just, and you've seen it in color, especially with him, because you got characters that are wearing red costumes and black costumes, but he is so just blood red when he shows up that he just stuns everybody. And the shot when Christine and Raoul escape to the top of the opera house where that big steeple is or whatever it is, it's like an angel at the top, and he's up there listening. Yeah. Man, that shot of him on that steeple, in the moment that he gets betrayed again by Christine, is just one of the most amazing shots I think I've ever seen, especially when you see the red. It's epic. And of course, now Christine, I hate her. I cannot stand her, man. Like, she is just, I can't say the words I want to call her, but I mean, she is just, she's the
good.
villain.
I thought I was the only one.
No, man.
I don't know. I mean, like, man, she just irritated me.
Oh,
like,
she's the true villain of the movie, man. The true villain of the film, And so for me, when I first watched this movie, I was 14 or 15, and this was the second silent film I'd ever seen at the time. My first silent film experience was the original Nosferatu, then followed up closely with this, and then Lost World from 1925. And this one took the cake for me. This movie. This was the movie where Sludge became a movie fan. Like, I went from just enjoying and being entertained. This was the first movie where I saw more with the characters and the story than anything else. So for me, as a 14-year-old, it wasn't just me trying to enjoy a silent film and a horror movie. For me, I saw deeper. To me, it was not about him being some horrific ghoul that lived underneath this opera house. It was about his search for love and finding it, only to be betrayed by that love over and over and over again, and to not be understood by anybody there. I mean, everyone's afraid of him, and up until the point where you find the guy hanging, which, by the way, you don't even know for sure if it's actually the Phantom who hung the guy in the film. He's just misunderstood, and all he wants, and he gives it his all to put Christine on this pedestal and give her her dreams. She constantly over and over again betrays him. Just back. I mean, she is the true villain, man. I wish she had died, but that's just me. You know what I mean? Like, she was the evil part. But for me, it all culminated to the last scene of the film. So as I'm watching this, I'm like, it was my first time digging deep into a film and seeing what the movie's about, getting the underlying message, seeing the subliminal messages, what's really being told. And this changed everything for me. So, so when I go and I'm watching, after at this moment in my life, movies changed drastically. Every movie that I saw after this, not every, but most of them, what was the message? I mean, especially when you were watching horror films, when you watch things that They Live by John Carpenter. I mean, the societal message of that movie is huge. It is just all about consumerism and control. It is political control and consumerism is what the movie's about. Or anything by George Romero. I mean, every one of his zombie movies, people are like, oh, it's just a dumb zombie movie. Oh, yeah. No, you need to pay attention to what he's talking about. He is talking heavily on society. Even in Martin. Oh my gosh, Martin, like, I can go into a big message on that one. So I started to see these in these movies, you know. Then I'd go watch movies like Donnie Darko or Memento, and I'm like, dude, this is so deep. You know, I'd be catching it all while friends of mine are like, I don't get what's going on. All that came from Family Opera for me. So this was
it's all the symbolism you start seeing, and it might be because it was a silent film, but it opens your eyes.
It does. I mean, this was the one that all clicked for me, all clicked, and that's what I just went from being someone who enjoyed watching a movie to becoming a movie fanatic. Like I just today, movies became life all of a sudden, and these otherworldly stories that I could enter into that I couldn't do before and dig deep into it. And I absolutely loved it. And for me, there was the final moment, man, when I'm like, man, you're after the wrong guy. Like, you know, it's not him. He's done all this, you know, because he loved her and she's betrayed him over and over and over again. And actually in the book, the one of the few things that did change is if you going back and read Gaston's book, the Phantom dies at the actual the organ in his lair. He dies of a broken heart. That's how he actually dies in the book. But of course, that wasn't good enough for the audience, so they reshot it. And what ends up happening to make it more exciting is when he runs down the bridge, down by the river, and the mob's chasing him, and it's just the greatest scene, man. To me, this is the greatest scene in cinema history. They're coming down on both sides, and he raised his fist up in the air, and they freak out. They all stop. I mean, we're talking hundreds of people, and just by raising his fist, they all stop, and they're gasping in fear. And then his hands closed up, and then he just turns his hand and opens it, and there's nothing there. And then he just laughs as they bombard him and beat him to death. And to me,
that's a powerful scene, man.
Oh my gosh. You know, I mean, as a 14-year-old kid, dude, that just rocked me to the core. I'm like, man, as humans, we will always be afraid of something we will never understand. Always. I mean, that true sentiment of the human nature and the darkness of the human nature hit me like a ton of bricks watching this. You know,
if you're different, you'll be spurned.
Exactly. Yeah.
Basically,
it's
a human nature. You know, if you're any different, if you don't conform, or if you're different in any way, you're going to suffer.
Yep.
Is basically what the theme is. And it's very true to this day.
Oh yeah. Especially in society today right now. You know,
I mean, it's just like, if you don't conform, then, you know, we're going to lead you to the bridge. We're going to beat you to death, and we're going to throw you into the water.
Yep.
And, you know, I'm like, man, it's so, that scene, you know, especially when he opens his hand and there's nothing there. It's like, I was never the monster you made me out to be.
Yeah.
And then boom.
And he just shows them, and he gets the last laugh because he's laughing the whole time. Shows them it's them. They are the monsters. Christine is the monster. Right? You know, they're the true monsters of the film, not Eric the whole time. And I absolutely love that. That was for me. It was just such a big moment. I mean, of course, obviously, you know, 55 episodes into a podcast about monster movies, you know, I did Sludge Cast for almost 50 episodes about pop culture film. I talk about films on the NPC show. I mean, movies so integral. I mean, it was always my escape. This was it, man. This was the movie for Sludge that changed it all and will forever and always be my all-time favorite movie. None of them. There's just not a movie that can compare to this. And again, like Ruben, you said it earlier, for a silent film, man, it's easy to watch. I mean, it is. It's so entertaining. I mean, the soundtrack's on point. The actors do such a phenomenal job, especially portraying the emotion to where you don't even need the cards at points because you're like, I know what's going on. I can tell what's going on. And that's truly great acting. And just to have a great story, and then the underlying message that I'm going to say Carl's name wrong again. Dang it, Limley. Carl,
you got it.
There we go.
You got it.
That Carl Limley was really trying to get across is just superb. I mean, and then of course, then just add on the history of this movie. There's nothing bad about this film for me, except for the one thing that I did tell you guys that that cracks me up when I watch it every time. Okay, if you go back and watch it, I don't know if you picked this up on this, Ruben, or not. But you will next time you watch the film now, though. Throughout the movie, okay, you'll see the Phantom will send letters, okay, to the opera house managers, or they'll pull, or he'll send a letter to Christine, or the one detective pulls a letter down and it actually gives the little information about Eric himself, the Phantom. Every one
Carlota,
of those.
He sends it to Carlota, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Or he sends it to the Carlota?
Carlota, yeah. Yep.
Saying her name?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tells her
Carlota,
to be ill.
Letters to her, too.
Yep. So every one of those shots, when you're looking at the letter, because it's just a shot of the letter, is the same thumb. It's one man. Okay, so they just did a shot of one man holding these cards, and you can tell because it's the same thumb every time. What cracks me up the most is when Carlotta and Christine are holding their letters, and it goes over to the letters. It's clearly the dude's thumb. It's like, that's not a woman's thumb. It's this dude's thumb. That's for all of them.
Yeah.
So that cracked me up.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. So now we go back and watch.
Didn't even notice because I'm so busy reading the letter.
Right.
So
yeah. You're like now you'll go back and watch like, man, Christine's got a pretty manly thumb there. Like it's
you got a man hands.
Yeah.
Seinfeld would say man hands. Yeah.
So I mean, if I had to pick a negative, that would be the one and only negative. But I mean, most of the time, you're so busy reading the letter, you're not going to notice. Or when you do finally notice, it just makes you laugh. Because especially when it's in Christine's hand or Carlotta's. But phenomenal movie. I mean, to me, I can't recommend this enough. If you've never watched a silent film, go watch this movie. Because it's just there's tons of silent movies you need to watch as a film fan. Yeah. But this is a must see. I mean, if I made a list of top 10,
this one has the framework that's been used over and over again.
Oh yeah.
The one that came to mind when I was watching this is King Kong, the original King Kong.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
You know, I'm like, this was made in 1925. I said, they just took the framework of Phantom of the Opera, you know, and now Ann Darrow's not the bad guy in it, but they made, you know, this guy, this misunderstood creature, this misunderstood human, and he ends up dying for love, and that's exactly what King Kong's all about.
Yep.
Even at the end of the 2005 Peter Jackson, one of the most powerful lines comes from Jack Black when they say, oh, you know, the planes got him. He goes, no, it wasn't the planes. It was beauty that killed the beast.
Oh man. I'm gonna add in here though. I don't think, and I know this is where we're kind of like a little bit swerve from Phantom. I honestly don't think that's the most powerfully delivered line in that movie. The most powerful, to me, the most powerfully delivered line in that movie comes not too long prior, but right before that is when they're on top of the Empire State Building. She's crying. He's shot to crap. He's about to fall off and die. Yeah. And then they look at the sunset, and she gives this hand signal for beautiful.
Yes.
That they do on the island, dude. Tear dropped out of my face. I ain't afraid to admit it, man. I was like, that's it right there. Yeah. That was the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the most powerful moment. Yeah, you're right. But to me, I mean, I always remember that line because of that, and it takes me back to this. I think this was the origin, and maybe there were other movies like that. Man, I don't know. I mean, I will tell you that when I was watching this movie again for the second time in my lifetime, and I saw that, I'm like, man, this is a lot like Port East Kong.
It is,
you know, and this was done way before. Yeah, I said, this is Kong. This is Kong, misunderstood. He's portrayed as a villain, but in the end, he really just was a misunderstood person or creature or whatever you want to say, depending on the movie. So this framework is, I mean, how many times has this happened? You know, have they taken this frame or maybe outline
and used? I mean, all throughout film history. All throughout film history.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this.
I mean, you can even take it to Goonies with the what's his name in the basement. You know, ends up being a big softie. I mean, it all goes back to this right here. And we got Hunchback of Notre Dame, you know, and stuff like that. That might be the only one closer that has about the same framework, maybe, that was done before this one. But
yeah, well, I mean, that's what I was thinking. I was trying to think of standard, you know, because I've seen a ton of silent films. The only thing I can think of that came prior to this with that framework would be Hunchback, but even that didn't deliver to the level that this did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Still a great movie though. Oh my gosh, it's still such a good movie.
Oh yeah, no, there's like I said, I had to reach for negatives on this one only because, you know, to be fair, you know, but you heard my negatives. They weren't very negative.
Yeah. And hey,
there's just so much about this movie, you know.
It's
it's like a masterpiece that you hang on your wall. You know, I can't see anybody putting this movie in and at the end saying, I just wasted, you know, 107 minutes, or what was it? Yeah, 107. Yeah, 107 minutes. I can't see anybody saying that.
I can't,
even though it's silent.
I can't see anybody going, that was 107 minutes, really? Because it just doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's just you. I don't know. I guess hypnotized. You get hypnotized by the story and all the backgrounds to the sets. I mean, I was just reading the soundstage didn't get knocked down till recently. You know, in the last 20 years, maybe.
Oh yeah, Soundstage 28.
Because it just barely got knocked down because the way it was made to be an opera house, and they had so many extras that they had to make it with steel and concrete to hold all those extras.
Yep.
So they just, you know, they didn't want to tear it down because it was just too much trouble.
Yeah,
and even when they did, they still took apart the set and preserved it. So,
because Soundstage 28, that soundstage that they built, because you're right. I mean, the amount of extras is insane. But they used it in not just this. I mean, it was in hundreds of movies.
Prior to reused and reused again. Yeah. So, that it just recently got torn down or dismantled, I should say, not torn down. They used the word torn down, but then they said they preserved the set somehow. And I'm like, well, then they didn't. They dismantled it then. They didn't tear it down. Or Soundstage 28 is no longer there, I guess. I mean, I don't know what they did, but this is iconic. This is a Godzilla 54. This is a King Kong 33. This is a Alien. You know, a lot of movies that we've given fives to. I will disclaimer, I didn't give it a 5, but it certainly
came close.
Yep. Yes, it came very close. The only reason I didn't get a 5 is because it's not my favorite Universal. Other than that, I probably would have given it a 5.
Yo, this one gave solid 5 for me, obviously. So we rounded out at the 4.5. I mean, it's a must see. If you guys have never seen this, you have to see this movie. And man, just real quick, man, because I didn't even think about that till you said that, because they used to do about Soundstage 28. They used to do tours, and so that you all know how this stage, of course, was built for this film, how impactful this movie was. Now, I mean, there's tons of movies that's been, I'm talking like there's parts of the original Psycho, The Birds, the Raven, Airport was shot there, the comedy movie Airport, episodes of Knight Rider were shot there, all the way up to I think like one of the last movies, or I don't know if it was one of the last movies, but even Jurassic Park, parts of it was shot at Soundstage 28. Oh yeah. So I mean, this is like, I mean, we're talking historical what this was, and it was built for family opera, which is just super, super cool. I'm about to find out now, like what was the last movie filmed there, you know, at Soundstage 28.
Well, it says here, I wish I could, you know, I looked it up and it just says Soundstage 28. Well, it's part of the Phantom of the Opera. It was torn down in 2014. So, man, it most likely got used very recently in the last, you know, 15 years?
Yeah.
16 years.
And it was supposed to have been, of course, you know, quote unquote, haunted too. If I was taking, like, I think there was actually, there was actually some like haunted stories behind the soundstage itself.
Wow. I've never, you know, I'm a big, I read a lot of haunted house books and stuff like that. It had been a long time, but man, I've never heard that. That's the first I've heard of Soundstage 28 being haunted.
Again, we're just giving you guys more reasons to watch this movie.
Yeah.
How many more do you need, you know?
Yeah. I mean, now there's the background of this movie alone should at least get you curious.
Oh, absolutely.
I think, you know, I mean, after reading the background, I'm like, man, matter of fact, I told Sludge, I watched this on Saturday. We record on Wednesday nights. So I watched this the Saturday prior. Okay. And I did it the Saturday prior because I started doing my background, doing my little research on it, and I started reading about it, and I couldn't wait. I said, you know what, I got to watch this now. And so I watched it, and because the background is just so intriguing, and there's so much, there's just so much history to this movie, other than it's just not another movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that has a history and went through so much changes to get it just to get made. Just to get made, it had to go through change. Those screenplays, and they were rejected, and then they decided to change the ending because they screen tested it and they didn't like the ending. To me, the Broken Heart ending would have been just beautiful.
I think so too.
I
think,
yeah.
Granted, not having that wow moment of going,
yeah, that's true.
This is how
they were going for. This was supposed to be a horror movie.
Yeah.
So I guess they wanted to end that way, but, yeah, I just would have liked to seen, a more, that broken heart conveyed a little bit more. We knew he was brokenhearted, but I would have liked to seen that. But but I can see why they changed it, and the ending is just fine. I like the.
Oh
ending.
yeah, I love the ending. Love the ending.
The ending is.
It's one of those things where, like,
you
even with the, like the ending of the book, it's totally fine staying in the book, because what we got on film, I think, was just, for me at least.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying.
I think if I'd have gotten the ending in the book, it may not have clicked like it did this.
Yeah,
with this.
And you know what? That's what the test screening said.
Yep.
Test screening, it said that no, they wanted this ending, and I don't think they were wrong. I'm just saying, I would have liked to seen that broken, maybe before he takes off on the carriage, maybe an expression on his face of disappointment and like, maybe just figuring, you know what, I'm going to die.
Right.
This is it. And it's all because of her.
It's all Christine's fault. She should have died.
It's all Christine's fault. Yeah. So, man, like Sludge says, this is highly recommended. I can't. This is, and I also read it's one of the top 100 movies to watch before you die. And I 100% agree with that. This is one of the movies you have to watch before it should be on your bucket list. Even if you're not a silent movie buff, man, you just need to watch this movie.
Yep, I totally agree. Well, even like you watched it Saturday, I watched it Sunday, and then I had to watch it again today. Not because, it's like, oh, did I miss anything? No, I've seen this movie more than most Godzilla films. I've seen it so many times, but it's just because it's just that good. It is such a good movie. But
yeah, and this is one of the movies. There's down here in Corpus, when everything was normal, the art museum would do screenings on outside wall. So you'd go, it was called Ride Up Theater. So the thing is, you'd ride up on your bike. It's basically what they're trying to promote: exercise and ride your bike. Don't drive over here, ride your bike or walk over here, and on the side of the wall of the museum, they'd show movies.
Oh man,
this would be a perfect movie for that.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
I said, man, this would have been such a cool movie to show on that. It's the art museum. This is a work of art. It was just, I'm like, man, if they ever start doing that again, they usually ask for I said, I'm going to suggest this movie because I want to see this on a big screen, and I want to see it in that atmosphere.
Yep.
With people, just to see the reaction. That'd be cool. But this is just a great movie. I can't stop raving about it.
Oh, it's so good. So, all right, guys. Well, if we haven't told you enough, you should have figured it out by now. This is a must-see movie. Highly recommended on our list. Of course, we missed Mark tonight, but he'll make up for it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Again, we can't say it enough. This is a must-see movie. This is a must-see classic. You've got to watch this movie. It will blow your mind. It is so good. And, of course, we've got one more episode for you this month. It's going to be short, not like normal, but we are 2 weeks away from today, I think. We're recording this because we recorded this on Wednesday, so it's the 17th. Of course, you guys are here this Saturday. But we are 2 weeks away from Godzilla versus Kong. We are super pumped. Most of us have asked the day off to go see it, to make sure we view it. And you know what? After we watch it, we're going to get together, do a quick, spoiler-free, we promise, Pete and Justin, in case you guys don't get to see it, it'll be as spoiler-free as possible. Initial reaction review episode for Godzilla vs. Kong, and we're super stoked about that. So I can't wait. Super good. And of course, next month, join us again. Our next Godzilla movie next month is Godzilla against Mechagodzilla? Yeah, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
Which we're fixing to get close to rounding out the Millennium series. So we'll do that one.
Yeah.
And then the next episode next month, we're going to continue on trucking through the Universal monster movies, and we're going to go with the next one in order, and that's going to be Dracula from 1931, showcasing another one of the classic legendary phenom actors, Bela Lugosi. So I'm super stoked about that one. We may have to, watch, because they just did an article today on Bloody discussing about the Spanish version of this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, because it's a whole nother beast in itself. It really, really is. So we may have to try and knock both of those out in that episode. That'd be pretty cool, because I don't know anyone else that's ever done that.
Yeah. No, and same soundstage, different actors.
Yep.
Bela Lugosi will go home for the day, and the Spanish actors come in,
which is crazy how they did that.
Pretty crazy, yeah. Yeah.
So, but all right. Well, man, again, thank you guys so much. Stay tuned. We got another one coming for you again with Godzilla vs. Kong, initial reactions. And then join us next month for Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and the original. Well, not the original, technically the original, even though Nosferatu was really the original. This 1931 Dracula movie. Can't wait for that one. So, this is Sludge
and Ruben.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
We have a hope.
Get to the chopper! And leave.